I don't think Elon will be losing any sleep over this protest, but the fact that his involvement in politics has become a albatross for both him and also for Tesla. There is a reason why generations of business executives have been told not to meddle with politics.
Iain Martin of Forbes Senior Editor, thank you so much for joining the Tech Report today.
Hi, Maddie. It's great to join you.
Let's kick off with what's happened, the Astronomer situations, the gift that keeps on giving in the wake of the CEO being caught cheating on his wife at the Coldplay concert. The company has performed a masterclass in PR crisis handling by hiring Gwymeth Paltrow, of course, Chris Martin's former ex-wife, as a temporary spokesperson. That's what she called herself. And I'll play a little clip for our audience so they know what we're talking about.
Astronomer is the best place to run Apache Airflow, unifying the experience of running data, ML, and AI pipelines at scale. We've been thrilled so many people have a newfound interest in data workflow automation.
But the company, they've managed to obviously poke fun at themselves while capitalizing on the recent media attention. But this is a company valued at over $1 billion. They've worked with Apple and Uber, but most of us didn't know their name until the scandal that took place a few weeks ago. So, Iain, what's your reaction to this ad as they try and claw their way back from this PR nightmare?
I think kind of what's interesting here is you have the board of a very obscure and quite boring company. It's been quite nimble to kind of pull off this stance. Quite complicated sort of like media play in a very short amount of time. I have to ask why. This isn't a consumer-oriented company. They don't really need to make big splashy PR moves. I don't think anyone in the market for checks notes Apache Airflow data orchestration platform is going to think, oh yes, Gwymeth Paltrow, that was funny. Let me call these guys. Let me write them a check. Yeah, I think the board was pretty effective at kind of quickly addressing kind of the corporate issues already. I'm not going to go into detail there, but obviously the CEO has moved on. It's not clear what this has cost them in terms of bringing in Gwyneth Paltrow, but Hollywood celebrities are particularly cheap. This is a company that's reliant on money from venture capitalists and is valued at less than $1 billion. Eventually, there's a rough conversation in a couple of months or in a year's time with staff and shareholders to explain why there's no bonuses or why we need to raise again because we spent X amount of money on a fun video to win internet points from people who don't really care.
That's so true, Iain. The cost, I mean, my first initial thought was how much did they pay Gwyneth Paltrow and how much will that hurt the company down the line. But moving on to the big story from late last week, which is, of course, Tesla's second quarter earnings were released for the public, showing a somewhat disappointing result with the steepest drop in revenue in over a decade at 12%. Vehicle deliveries and product demand were also down now. CNBC is reporting that Tesla investors are worried about Elon Musk's promises. He keeps saying to basically stay on the ride, that we have a few rough quarters ahead, but it will pay off. So do you think that this will pay off in the way that he's telling investors, or do you think that perhaps his promises that robo-taxis and that robots will deliver in the way that he says that they will?
Normally, the grandiose promises from Elon are foreshadowing fairly negative news for his public markets investors. Let's just kind of set the scene with where Tesla is now. This is a company with close to a $1 trillion market cap. That's the combined value of Toyota, Ford, General Motors, Volkswagen, and all the other major car makers combined have a values of less. It's a share that's trading at over 180 times its earnings. The average across the NASDAQ is 30 times its earnings, and that's after Tesla's dropped by 20% since the start of this year. There were kind of some foreshadowing in terms of kind of, I think, Elon trying to sort of change the narrative in terms of these earnings where, sort of revenue is down by 12%, operating income is down by almost half, and there's potentially even worse news to come in the following quarters. His kind of new gambit seems to be talking up this idea of a diner and sort of in Los Angeles as a trial, and sort of his posing that this could be a kind of like a future international train. A chain of sort of properties based around sort of superchargers. That's obviously less attractive than building electric cars or building AI, and certainly less profitable. In terms of kind of promises that Elon has made or sort of claims that he's made to investors, part of the reason why Elon has become one of the world's richest men, he has become the world's richest man, is one, because he's a very successful entrepreneur and technologist. Perhaps more importantly, he's very good at telling stories. The story has always been, do not value Tesla purely as a maker of electronic vehicles. This is a company that's going to drive a generational change in technology. Initially that story was around electric cars and supercharging. He delivered on that. But, that kind of narrative has changed as growth has slowed down to focus on other ideas. Over the years, it's been self-driving cars. Elon has never really fully delivered on that. Sort of the robo-taxi idea has been a recurring idea, but like other ideas have come and gone over the years, something like sort of solar panels or sort of self-driving trucks or lorries. Yeah.
Elon Musk, he promised to produce 1 million Optimus robots a year by the end of the decade, but the information is reporting that Tesla is well behind this goal. They're behind this goal of producing 5,000 robots by the end of 2025. There's only been about a few hundred being built. So he's had a few setbacks with departures of staff at certain high-level employees and supply issues. But will it be quite bad for Elon Musk if he gets to the end of 2025 and he hasn't met this goal?
That's a good question. I think investors are increasingly aware that sometimes investors are increasingly aware that not all of Elon's sort of claims quite pan out. So his new narrative is that Tesla can become a leader in robot taxis. He's talked about this before since at least 2019. His kind of the promise or the claim that he was telling investors last week that he would be serving half of the US population by the end of the year with robot taxis, or there would be coverage across half the US. That's a very big claim, given that he's only just launched the trial of robotaxis, Tesla robotaxis, in one city in Texas. We just kind of look at who is winning in that space. That's Google with a business it has called Waymo. They've been doing this since 2009. They've invested tens of billions of dollars into this space, and they're still only operating in 5 cities. So, maybe take that claim with a pinch of salt. Particularly, the launch has got off to a rough start in terms of there have been some videos of the Tesla robot taxis in Austin making strange and erratic moves. It's also worth bearing in mind that Tesla is operating with a very different technology to the other companies in that space. It is only using optical cameras and AI in order to control the taxis. This is sort of Waymo, which if you've been to San Francisco or another city that they operate in America, they are plastered with a variety of lasers, cameras, radar devices in order to try and cover all the angles. So yeah, we'll see on that. Then in terms of kind of Optimus, this is one of Elon's new ideas, and sort of he's kind of put in quite a lot of value around this, despite it being a very, very new product category. So this claim is that he will have thousands of these robots, which are sort of humanoid and very sort of sci-fi, retrofuturistic design feature. The idea of have thousands of these working in Tesla's factories by the end of the year. He claims that he'll be able to build 1 million of these robots by 2030. And he's also sort of on X is promoting this kind of Jetson cartoon style idea of the future where you'll have a robot in your home folding your laundry and tucking your kids in at night. He claims that this could make Tesla to be worth a $25 trillion company at some point in the future. All the reports around this suggest that they are struggling with this. With the caveat, Tesla is good at robotics. It's a leader at this. It's heavily using conventional industrial robots in the production of its EVs. But again, the caveat is the sort of robotics are very hard, and robotics outside of industrial setting are even harder. Having a heavy robot in a human environment without any safeguards is really quite dangerous and hard. So definitely this kind of idea of having humanoids with having robots with humanoid form factor is become a bit of a craze in Silicon Valley and also China. But most people in this space are more focused on industrial applications. Most predictably, Elon is sort of trying to do things in the hardest way possible. So not only is he trying to build a human robot, he wants it to have hands like a human with sort of 5 digits. They're capable of manipulating like a human. This is very challenging for 2 main reasons. One is in terms of AI and sort of the compute involved in what humans do when they sort of pick up. If you can pick up 2 objects, one would be made from metal, one would be made from glass. You have radically different sort of levels of pressure and sort of how you approach that. And then also just a kind of human dexterity versus a robot. That's kind of like a huge technical hurdle to clear that many people are trying to work on. I had an interesting visit to a workshop of a rival company in this space that is trying to build a large language model to help robots operate in human space. And the way they were doing this is they had a workshop full of humans wearing gloves, wire sensors, folded t-shirts in order to try and build the training data in order to teach robots teach a model that they could then drive a robot to kind of use their fingers in a human way. But that kind of task of like sort of folding a t-shirt, given like the size of the t-shirts, the different types of materials, the surface that the t-shirt is on, or is it perfectly dry? All these things make sort of this type of robotics incredibly challenging.
And I know that he's put a few of these robots in these Tesla diners in this one Tesla diner in LA that you mentioned, and their job is to basically pass out popcorn. But people were wondering, is that the only staff that is going to be at the diner? But he said, no, humans will still be doing all the proper service jobs and human interactions, but there would be robots kind of passing out popcorn and maybe doing a few other things. But yeah, you mentioned this diner, and it launched last week. It was Tesla's first diner, and basically anyone with a Tesla who needs to charge their electric vehicle, basically be able to charge in their superchargers and go in for a bite to eat, go in and watch a movie, a few other entertainment things that they can do. But Iain, unfortunately for Elon Musk, over the weekend, it was met with a large number of, I think it was 75 protesters gathered outside the diner, the same way in which they were doing to Tesla showrooms a few months ago. One of the organizers told CNN, he said customers are waiting 11 hours so they can have a Tesla brand burger and fries. This is the world's most renowned anti-trans advocate who just opened a diner in West Hollywood. The community is not very supportive of Elon. Our main message is Tesla funds fascism. Elon Musk via Doge has destroyed our government agencies and people's jobs, and people are dying around the world because of him. So very strong words from this protest organizer. But, I wonder, do you think Elon Musk is going to struggle with his face being the face of these companies as he tries to expand into various different ventures, such as this diner, after quite a tumultuous few months in the spotlight?
I don't think Elon will be losing any sleep over this protest, but the fact that his involvement in politics has become a albatross for both him and also for Tesla. There is a reason why generations of business executives have been told not to meddle with politics, particularly when you are in a consumer-orientated business. And I think we can see there's 2 factors here. One is Tesla hasn't released a new model car since 2019, apart from the Cybertruck, which isn't really a mass market product. And in the meantime, you've had successive waves of American, European, and now Chinese car makers coming out with vastly more competitive products. But then also you have the fact that Elon was always deeply bound up in the brand image of Tesla. But now that brand, his own, has become deeply linked with Donald Trump, who's obviously an incredibly divisive figure within American and international politics. And that's having that, based on looking at what's happening in car sales in the US and Europe, this appears to be having an impact on the business.
Just finally, Iain, we mentioned Trump. Last week, it was revealed that Donald Trump had an hour-long meeting with Amazon's Jeff Bezos. Now, we don't know the details of the meeting. We don't know exactly when it took place because that information hasn't been released. But we saw Donald Trump. He used to call Jeff Bozo. He accused him of not paying taxes, but then Bezos donated about $1 million to Trump's inauguration fund before the presidential election. But then this meeting, of course, takes place after Trump's very public fallout with Elon Musk. So I wonder, could we see perhaps the White House turning to Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin for work over SpaceX?
That's a good question. We don't know very much about this meeting, and this has also become a popular trip for executives from many major companies, and particularly from Silicon Valley, to visit and spend time with Trump. Exactly, is this related to Amazon or to other areas of sort of Bezos's interest? It's unclear. What is known is that the US government is a major supporter of SpaceX in terms of the launch program. There's also a major contract on the table in terms of Donald Trump has a plan for a missile defense program for the United States called Golden Dome. SpaceX would be in the running for this, but obviously Jeff Bezos has his own rival space launch company, Blue Origin.
So we could see him completely switching gears. It'll be interesting to watch that. And from what we know is with the Golden Dome is that if Amazon and Jeff Bezos do win this contract, which would be millions and millions of dollars, but the contract details are not known, SpaceX would be somewhat involved, but they wouldn't be leading the charge. But it would be, I guess, a bit of a slap in the face to Elon Musk if he ended up going with Jeff Bezos over Elon Musk. But a wait and watch situation. Iain Martin, thank you so much for joining the Tech Report today.
Pleasure. Thank you.